Hello dear students and welcome back to the video lectures of social science for class 8, and this video I am providing you in the sequence of the chapter 1 of civics, that is the Indian Constitution. I have already provided you the first part of this chapter, and in that we have discussed about laws, why laws are necessary for in games as well as for functioning any country. We have discussed about what is a constitution, why India needs a constitution after its independence. We have learned about the procedures of the framing of the Indian constitution. We have discussed about the Constituent Assembly, the drafting committee. Further on, we have discussed about that how is the preamble of the constitution looks like. Okay, then we have discussed about some of the features of the constitution. Now, this part is in continuation with the features of the constitution. Here we are going to discuss about some more features of the constitution, as well as we will be discussing about the laws and what happened if the people of the country do not like any law that is framed by the legislature body or executed by the executive of the country. Okay, so let us move forward and learn about. So very first is the Indian Constitution is the lengthiest and the bulkiest constitution in the whole world. Okay, our constitution is the lengthiest one. It is one which you can get in the form of a book and can be read. Okay, the Indian Constitution comes in the form of a book. It is totally handwritten constitution. Okay, it was the world's lengthiest written constitution. When it was framed, when a constitution was framed, at that time it has only 395 articles, 22 parts and 8 schedules at the time of commencement. But further on, as the Constitution of India keeps on changing, okay, so with the need of changing the constitution, today, in the present day, it has 448 articles, 25 parts and 12 schedules, until now 104 amendments. Okay, our Constitution of India was totally a handwritten constitution, and it is written in a beautiful calligraphic way. Okay, and the calligraphy for that was done by Prem Bihari Narayan Raizada. The preamble of the constitution was designed by Beohar Ram Manohar Sinha. Okay, he was an artist from Jabalpur. He only designed a preamble. So the Constitution of India is the lengthiest and the bulkiest. It is made up of 448 articles, 25 parts, 12 schedules and 104 amendments till date. Okay, let us move further and learn about blend of rigidity and flexibility. As all of you are knowing that our country got its independence before 70 years, approx 70 years. Now, there's lots of development took place in the country. The needs of people keep on changing. So like that only, since the needs of the people are changing, since the people are developing and lots of new things coming to the country or in the world. Okay, so that is why there is a strong need to change the rules according to the needs and the situation required. So that is why a constitution is a blend of rigidity as well as flexibility. That means a constitution is flexible so that we can make changes in the constitution, but as well as it is rigid because we cannot make changes in the constitution that easily. Okay, we have to follow a procedure, or our legislatures has to follow a procedure through which any amendment or any changes can be made in the constitution. The Indian Constitution is a blend of rigidity and flexibility. The Constitution of India is neither rigid like the Constitution of US nor flexible like the British Constitution. That means it doesn't mean that it is that rigid that no changes can be made into the constitution, and it is not that flexible also that any changes can be made that easily. Okay, Article 368 of the constitution provides for various types of amendments, that is modification depending on the situation. So that is why whenever there is a need, so we can make changes, or the government or the leaders can make changes in the constitution, and that changes are only known as amendments. But the basic structure of the constitution can never be changed. Okay, basic structure of the constitution, like India is following a parliamentary form of government. This is the government, the structure of the government we cannot change. Yes, we can change the working of the Lok Sabha, that means how many members, we can increase or decrease the members of the Lok Sabha, but we cannot change the full structure of the constitution. Okay, so at the same time, the basic structure doctrine does not allow the core principles of the constitution to be amended. Like the core principles are that India is a secular, sovereign, socialist, democratic republic. We cannot change these features of the constitution. Okay, but we can make amendments according to the need of the society or according to the change required. Now after this we are having this topic only regarding constitutional amendment. So the Constitution of India is able to adapt itself to the changing needs of the society. As the needs of the society is changing, the Constitution can make, or we can make, or the legislature can make modifications in the Constitution. Since it was framed, many social and economic changes have taken place in the country. India is not in that situation whether it was where it was in 1947. Lots of things have changed. So that is why some guidelines given in the Constitution might have become outdated. They are not working today. Okay. So by the process of constitutional amendment, it is possible to add or modify the existing rules of the Constitution. So how the legislature used to change any law or any act? So this is done by, or any article, or make amendments in any article. This is done by passing a constitutional amendment bill. I have already explained you in the class that this can be possible by passing constitutional amendment bill in the Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha, and that constitutional amendment bill should be passed with the majority and president's assent should be there. After that only it will become an act, okay, and the amendment will be introduced. So as you can take example, the Hindu Succession Act of 1956. This act came into existence in 1956, but one amendment was made into it, that was the Hindu Succession Amendment Act in 2005, which gave daughters also equal share in the parental property. Earlier, the Hindu Succession Act of 1956 does not allow daughters to get property or share in the parents' property, but since looking upon the situation of the daughters or the girls, it has been introduced, or this change has been made, and that particular act was amended, that was upgraded, okay, in 2005, in which it was mentioned that with the son, the daughters are also having equal rights in the paternal property or parental property. Okay, so as the constitution continuously modified itself, we can make changes in the Indian constitution, and that is why the Constitution of India is also known as living document. It is also known as living document. Now that next one is what is law. We have already discussed about what is law. Basically, the system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as regulating the actions of its members, and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. Okay. Now, a law has its existence or has its identity when some authority used to enact it on you. Okay. When it needs a particular authority, like government is an authority. Okay. Someone else, if a person can come to you and he will say that yes, this is the law and you have to follow it. You are not going to listen to it. Okay. Suppose teacher is not there in the class and one random child stand up and he is saying that please quiet, do not talk. Okay. You are not going to listen to him because you think that who is he to questioning you or to tell you that you do not talk or something. Okay. So that is why, but if that thing is done by a teacher or that thing is done by a monitor that is appointed by a teacher, so you all are going to listen it. That means you are knowing that some authority is imposing or is enacting that law on you. So that is why laws, what are laws? They are system of rules, okay, which are enacted on us or on a community or on the citizens of the people by the government or by the leaders of the country, okay, and if we are not following those laws, we are penalized for that. Okay, we have to file on penalties or fine for that. Okay, some punishments are required for that. So why do we need laws? So we need law to prevent antisocial and unacceptable behavior, the antisocial activities that is going on in a country, that are avoided because they are considered as a crime or a punishable offense. To regulate commercial and business transaction, everything should go smoothly in the business as well. That is why also rules are required or laws are required. To identify who should rightfully own property, about relating to the property also, that who is owning that property. To regulate family and personal relationships. At home also we have several laws. In school also we have to follow several laws. So for the smooth functioning of any organization, any institution, any country, whether it is your home, whether it is your group of friends, you have to follow several rules in that. Okay. Now, after this, since all of us are knowing that the legislative organ of the government used to legislate the laws, that means they used to form the laws. The executive organ of the government, they used to enact that laws on the citizens of the country. But it can also be happen that many a times the citizens of the country do not think that the laws are beneficial for them, and they do not like the law. They were not ready to follow the laws. So the thing, when the citizens of the country are not happy with the law, we in India, or we the citizen of India, we are having the right to show our displeasure or disagreement against any law which is enacted by the government. That means if the government has enacted any law on us, we are free to express our displeasure or disagreement regarding that law, and the process of showing disagreement or displeasure against any law is only known as dissent. Okay, so what is dissent? Is it quite clear to us? Dissent can be shown with the help of protest. Okay, protest is the way to show the dissent. Now the protest can be of two types. Okay, the one is violent and the other one is non-violent. Violent protest, that means you are doing some violent activities for showing your protest, like you are burning government buildings, you are burning government vehicles, destroying government properties, hurting someone, etc. Like you have seen in the farmers protest. Okay, since several laws were introduced by the government and the farmers were not happy, the farmers of Haryana and Punjab were mostly not happy with the enacted laws. Okay, so that is why what they used to do, they used to protest against that law, and that protest, some of them shows violent methods. Okay, maybe you have remembered the incidents of 26th January, and many more incidences took place regarding the protest of that law. Okay, now some laws or some people used to show their dissent with non-violent means, like they used to do candle march, they used to do peace march or signature campaigns to show their dissent against any law which they do not like. So we as the people of India have the right to show our dissent, so that the government can able to understand that yes, the people or the citizens of the country are not ready to accept this law. Okay, and after that, if it is required, so they used to make necessary changes in that or necessary amendments in that particular law. So this is what we call dissent. Now let's have a look on salt satyagraha. Salt satyagraha was also a protest or a dissent again of Gandhiji, started by Gandhiji against the Britishers. Okay, now here I want to explain you one thing, that the Britishers, during the British rule, the Britishers enacted one law on us that was known as Salt Act. Okay, this Salt Act was introduced by the Britishers in the year 1882 itself. Okay, according to this law, Indian people were not allowed to buy or sell salt. Okay, to buy, to manufacture or to sell salt in our own country. That means we the people of India were not allowed to make salt in our own country, to buy it. Okay, and for selling, we cannot sell, we have to purchase it from the Britishers, and for that also we have to give enough tax on that. That means we were paying heavy taxes on salt. So that is why Gandhiji decided that he is going to dissent, or he is going to show his protest, okay, against that particular Salt Act, and that is only known as Salt Satyagraha. So what is Salt Satyagraha? Salt Satyagraha is a movement against is a movement of Gandhiji, or we can add this thing also. Salt Satyagraha was a non-violent movement, okay, of Gandhiji against the Salt Act which was introduced by the Britishers. Okay, so let's see when it was started. So the Salt Act or Salt Satyagraha of Gandhiji was started on 12th March 1930. Since it was a peaceful movement, so that is why it only has the march movement. Okay, the followers of Gandhiji started marching from the Sabarmati ashram of Gujarat or Ahmedabad. Okay, they started marching, and with Gandhiji there were 78 followers. They decided that they are going to go to the coastal village of Dandi from there. So they started on 12th March 1930. Okay, and from there only, from Sabarmati ashram, they started their marching and they reached to the Dandi, a coastal village of Gujarat, and they reached there on April 6, 1930. Okay, there it is said that there Gandhiji manufactured salt, but it was not like that. Gandhiji just took a fist of salt in his hand. Okay, and there only he said that I am breaking the Salt Act of the Britishers. Now Indians are no more be listening to the Britishers, and we will make our own salt in our own country. Okay, so this was only the salt satyagraha, which was started by Gandhiji. It was a peaceful protest. As we have seen, it was a peaceful dissent which Gandhiji showed against the Salt Act, which was introduced by the Britishers. So if the citizens of the people are not happy with any of the law introduced by the Britishers, by the Indian government also, okay, so we can show our protest as Gandhiji did. Okay, this was the story of Gandhiji. Now let us move towards a very famous liquor movement. Okay, it was known as anti-Arak movement, or we can also say it as anti-liquor movement. Okay, or a campaign. What was Arak? Let's have a look on this first. What was Arak? So what is Arak? Arak is basically a low cost liquor, a low cost alcoholic drink that was sold in the Nellore district of Andhra Pradesh. Okay, since it was a low cost liquor and it was generally consumed by the poor people of the Nellore district. The men of that district The men of the district or Nellore district used to consume this poor liquor, okay, and which is also hazardous for their life. The anti-liquor movement or the anti-liquor campaign was started in the Nellore district of Andhra Pradesh in the year 1992 with a very famous lady named as Rosama Dubagunta Rosama. She is the lady who has launched the fight against the consumption of arak in Andhra Pradesh. So what was anti-liquor campaign? Anti-liquor campaign was a campaign against the consumption of a low-cost liquor known as arak, okay, by a very famous leader known as Dubagunta Rosama in the Nellore district of Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so why she wanted to stop the consumption or stop the selling of the arak, because arak is a rectified spirit which is obtained by distilling fermented molasses. Okay, it was an alcoholic drink. Production of arak became increasingly high, and since the men used to consume that arak at a very high rate, so that is why the consumption or its production has started increasing so that it can be easily available in the market. Okay, so that is why generally the people those who consume it, the men those who consume it, high consumption of liquor by men came as a curse to the women. Okay, if a man is consuming liquor or alcohol in a family, so it is going to disturb whole family. The women were mostly affected with the consumption of arak, okay, by their husbands. So that is why this movement was started by a lady only. She was Dubagunta Rosama. Okay, she collected all the women those who were exploited by their husbands after the consumption of arak. Okay, so this was, and after this only the chief minister of Andhra Pradesh also banned arak in the Nellore district. So this the picture that you are watching is the picture of Dubagunta Rosama. Okay, let us move further and learn about the Chipko movement. Chipko movement was also a very good movement against the conservation, against the cutting of the trees. This movement was started in 1973 in the Uttarakhand district. Okay, this movement was happened earlier also, but in the Uttarakhand district, okay, in the Chamoli place, Chamoli of Uttarakhand state, this movement was started. Okay, Chipko movement was started by the local people of that particular place. They were against the cutting of the trees, and as the name is Chipko, so the people of that particular Chamoli district, they used to stand by hugging the trees so that no one can cut the trees. For preserving or for conserving the trees, they used to hug the trees and stand for a very long time there so that people cannot cut it. So this was the Chipko movement, okay, and the main leader of the Chipko movement was Sundarlal Bahuguna. Okay, please remember it. After this, we are having the people of Uttarakhand region situated in central Himalayas raised their voice in 1973 in Chamoli district through Chipko movement. Okay, because their life was dependent on the forest and people were cutting the trees. So that is why the people, the villagers of the Chamoli district wanted to conserve the trees, wanted to conserve the forest. For that, they have shown or started the Chipko movement. After this, we are having the Dowry Prohibition Act. All of us are very well familiar about the dowry, that what is dowry. Dowry is basically money in the form of money or in the form of gifts that a bride's family used to give it to the groom's family during the marriage. Okay, so basically we have seen that the groom's family used to ask for the money, for cash, for gifts from the bride's family. Okay, so asking, and sometimes we have seen that if the bride's family is not able to give that much of money or that much of dowry to the groom's family, they used to ill treat the women. Okay, they used to ill treat the bride, they used to even kill, okay, torture, okay, the wife. So it is, dowry is not good for the females of the country as well as the families, those who are having females. Many parents do not want a girl child just because of dowry, that they have to pay dowry for that. Okay, so the Dowry Prohibition Act was introduced in the year 1961, which prohibits asking, taking, or giving dowry in India. It prohibits the request, payment, or acceptance of dowry. Not only request, it also prohibits payment or acceptance. If someone is giving, he is also equally, okay, responsible, and if someone is taking, he is also equally responsible. Okay, if someone is caught asking or giving dowry, so they will be punished imprisonment of up to 6 months as well as a fine up to 5,000 rupees. Okay, Indian government has modified property inheritance law, as we have learned about the Hindu Succession Act also, that nowadays daughters also having the right in the father's or in the parental property. So this is about the Dowry Prohibition Act. This act was introduced, earlier it was not there in our constitution. This act was introduced with the need of the society when it was seen that the dowry is becoming an such a social evil in the society. So it needs to be prohibited, it needs to be banned, and that is why this Dowry Prohibition Act was introduced in the Constitution of India. So I hope it is clear to you that how the Constitution of India changes according to the needs of the society. Okay, wherever there is a need, we can make changes in the Constitution, because a Constitution is flexible, and that is why our Constitution is also known as a living document. So I hope this chapter is almost finished. I have explained you everything related to this chapter. I hope you will watch the video. Okay, please try to attend the classes so that the chapters will become more clear to you. In any kind of queries, you can ask me through Zoom classes. So thank you, students. That's all for this chapter. After this, we will be discussing another chapter. Thank you, everyone.